All right, everybody. So we're gonna be talking about sparring psychology. Sparring in tournaments, kumite divisions, um, beginner sparring to more advanced sparring, as well as youth sparring compared to sparring as an adult. So let's get down to it. So basically, the psychology to this. The title of this video is "What happens to your brain when you start fighting." Now, when I talk about fighting, I refer to sparring competition. I don't really talk about actual, fighting out on the streets. It's more different than that. This is more for competitors, people who like to compete and like to enter the sparring division. So here it goes. So first of all, just because you're in martial arts, and I know it's gonna sound counterproductive, or it's gonna sound bad to most martial artists, but I mean it is an eye-opener, and it is something that needs to be said. Being a martial artist in the sense of you know the martial art moves, you know all the forms, you know how to maneuver your body, punch, kick with speed and with strength, does not necessarily make you a good fighter. Now you have the tools to be a good fighter, and the best way I can compare this to is, like, for example, a conversation, a debate. Just because you have a good grasp of the English language, just because you read a lot of books, you're really articulate, does not make you a good talker. It does not make you good at debates, does not make you good at arguments. It just means you have a vast variety of the vocabulary. It doesn't mean that you have the nerves to actually talk back and forth with somebody or in front of a group of people. All of that you got to put into practice. So now into the martial arts, into sparring. Just because you know all the moves, just because you have all the tools, it doesn't mean that you're good at using them. If you own a hammer, but you pick it up for the first time and start hammering a nail, it doesn't mean you're going to be good at it on the first try. You're going to need practice. So all the tools you learn in martial arts, in training, even in boxing, those are all tools that you know. But you don't sharpen those tools until you start putting them to work. And in the less lethal sense, that's when you spar. Now, sparring is dangerous in itself, because you're basically fighting at a certain strength and speed with a fellow competitor, a fellow teammate, in order to strengthen your muscles, your muscle memory, your consciousness, everything, to make you into a good fighter. Most fighters know that in order to be a good fighter, you need to have good timing and you need to have speed at the right times. So, I mean, you could be able to analyze somebody's moves, but if you're slow, you might not have the time to defend yourself. And if you have no timing, when that punch is coming at you, a lot of avoiding that punch is not just avoiding at the last second, but it's anticipating your opponent's moves through having good timing and being able to counter. Now, I know these words might apply more to current fighters right now, current practitioners of martial arts, but if you're somebody who doesn't do martial arts but are interested in getting into it, watch my previous videos, how I promote martial arts and how it benefits you in a psychological manner, a physical manner. I think you'll find some value in those videos. So don't forget to hit the subscribe and the like button on these. As well, I welcome people to disagree with me. But again, we're back down to the topic of sparring. So one example would be if you're gonna compete in your first tournament, even though you sparred with fellow classmates, fellow teammates, you've only sparred with people you know. You develop a comfort level, regardless of how good the other person is. You've developed a comfort level with them. So when you're in competition, you're sparring with somebody completely different, might have a different technique, a different style. If it's an open tournament, You might be Kung Fu competing against Taekwondo, competing against Karate, Tang Soo Do, Mudu Kwan. All of these styles are similar to point sparring, but completely different styles. So what's going to happen if in your first time of sparring? One, if you're a young person, you run the risk of not wanting to be embarrassed. And most of you know what I mean when I talk about that. Is that the ego kicks in, and one, you don't want to lose against your opponent, but at the same time your brain is already making excuses for you in case you do lose that fight. Now, we tend to move less freely in a kumite, depending if it's 3 points or 5 points in point sparring, only because we know we only have one shot. If we lose against that current opponent, we're done, and then we probably won't go to another tournament for another few months. So that's another thing. There's that desperation. So what happens is that, and I talk about this in my shorts, is that when you start sparring and you're not used to being in kumites and sparring in competitions, especially if you don't go to that many tournaments, you only go to maybe 1 or 2 a year, you're really gonna be nervous that you don't want to lose. So yeah, what's gonna happen is that, just like being nervous, just like when you're talking, you get a lot of brain farts, your moves are gonna feel heavier. You're gonna feel slower. When you punch, you might add more strength and speed. You might, instead of countering, mainly what you'll be doing is you'll be avoiding getting hit. You might not want to run the risk of countering somebody's move, only because you feel they're going to be too fast for you. So another thing is that you're going to overestimate your opponent. Remember, they're just as scared as you are, just as nervous, just as heavy. Now, the martial artist is going to have the advantage in sparring, is going to be the one that spars the most at their martial arts school and goes to more tournaments, or somebody who just spars against different styles. To be honest, I don't believe in the whole challenging somebody's school when it comes to trying to boost your ego, but I do believe in networking with other martial artists from other schools, talking to them, showing an interest in what they do, and then asking them, hey, is it okay if we spar one day? Because in the future I might end up sparring somebody in your style. You build relationships, friendships. I know I have a lot of friends that are different styles, that are in Taekwondo, Muay Thai, kickboxing, karate, other kung fu styles. I built a lot of relationships that way, where to this day I still know quite a few of them. I still keep in touch. Taekwondo as well. So every now and then it's good to sharpen your sparring abilities by sparring with these individuals, because you get to feel a different style when you spar with them. So now another thing, when you go to more tournaments, you don't overestimate the tournament itself. When you only go to 1 or 2 tournaments a year, you feel like you have to win those 1 or 2 tournaments, so you feel that pressure. But if you're going to maybe 1 tournament a month, you don't make it a big deal, and you're more relaxed, you're more loose. You feel like, okay, well, even if I lose this, I'll try my best. If I lose this tournament, I get another shot next month with a completely new set of fighters. And then when that year comes, when you fight those the fight that you lost before, you'll feel a bit more relaxed, more looser. You'll feel more experienced. So yeah, the whole thing about sparring, there's a lot of psychology to it. I haven't even mentioned you training yourself in speed, you training yourself in strength, practicing your kicks and your punches 10,000 times, to get them down, to have that muscle memory yet. Right now, I'm just focused on the psychology of it, of what goes on up here when you start fighting. So what happens is that, when you're not experienced, you start overthinking everything. So when you start overthinking all these things, you start trying to remember moves that might work while your opponent is just flowing. You gotta get to a point where when you're sparring, it feels like a dance. It feels like your counter just comes out naturally. But yeah, that's gonna take practice. It's going to take you setting time specifically for sparring. And I tell this to martial artists because a lot of them, they'll focus a lot on the forms. They'll focus on shadow boxing. They'll focus on practicing their punches and their kicks over and over again. But the way you get good timing is by actually sparring against somebody else. You get an idea of what it's like to actually time somebody's punch and kick depending on their body type, as well as calculate distance, which is very important. At some point you realize that some opponent, if they're shorter than you, they're not going to reach you unless they're very fast, or some that are heavier than you are not going to strike you just as quick. All this happens, with experience. So what happens to your brain when you fight? You adapt. You build habits, just like anything else that you do in life. You build these new habits, and you build this, and then that's when your muscle memory comes into play. Your eyes tell your body, hey, do this right away, without you having to really think about it. Your consciousness is already working ahead of time. All right, so this is just a quick video. Share your comments, disagreements. Happy to hear them. Maybe if you have, if you share your point of view, I'll share it in my next video. I might have left a lot of stuff out, honestly, but again, I don't think you can explain the art of fighting in just 13 minutes. So there's a lot I probably left out. All right, guys, have a great day.